November 17, 1928. Chicago's Lexington Hotel stands gray and imposing against a sky heavy with winter's first threat. Inside, on the fourth floor, in a room thick with cigar smoke and tension, Al Capone sits alone. The most feared man in America, the king of Chicago's underworld, the man who turned bootlegging into an empire worth hundreds of millions, waits. And Al Capone does not wait for anyone. But tonight is different. His fingers drum against the mahogany table, a rare display of nerves from a man who once beat 3 men to death with a baseball bat without breaking stride. The ash from his Cuban cigar grows long forgotten. He glances at the clock, 7:43. The meeting was set for 7:30, 13 minutes late. In Capone's world, 13 minutes late usually means 13 bullets, but he doesn't move. He doesn't call his men, he waits, because the man coming isn't just anyone. The man coming is from Harlem. And Harlem, right now, is the one place in America that Al Capone cannot crack. Across the table sits Frank Nitti, Capone's enforcer, his right hand, the man responsible for collecting debts and eliminating problems. Nitti's eyes keep drifting to his boss, searching for a signal, waiting for the order to end this disrespectful delay with violence. But Capone gives no signal. He simply stares at the door, his mind calculating, always calculating. The door opens. No knock. No announcement. Just the smooth, deliberate swing of heavy wood, and Ellsworth Raymond Johnson walks in. Bumpy Johnson, 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, with skin dark as Mississippi midnight and eyes that have seen things most men only have nightmares about. He's 31 years old, but he carries himself like a man who's lived 3 lifetimes. Behind him, no bodyguards, no weapons visible. Just Bumpy alone, walking into the lion's den like he owns it. Capone doesn't stand. Neither does Nitti. The insult is intentional, but Bumpy doesn't flinch. He pulls out a chair, the scrape of wood against floor loud in the silence, and sits down. For a moment, nobody speaks. The 2 men study each other. Capone sees intelligence in those eyes, calculation, and something else he wasn't expecting, absolute confidence. Bumpy sees exactly what he expected, power, paranoia, and curiosity. "You're late," Capone finally says, his voice gravelly matter-of-fact. "Traffic," Bumpy replies, his tone as flat as a blade. "It's a lie. There's no traffic at this hour. It's a power move, pure and simple." Bumpy Johnson just made Al Capone wait, and now he's making clear that he won't apologize for it. Nitti's hand moves slightly toward his jacket, but Capone raises one finger, barely, and Nitti freezes. "You got balls," Capone says, leaning back, "coming here alone." "I ain't alone," Bumpy replies. "I got something you want." "Yeah, and what's that?" "Peace." The word hangs in the air like smoke. Capone's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his eyes. Peace. In their world, peace is rarer than diamonds, more valuable than gold. Peace means no federal attention. Peace means profits without war. But peace also means compromise. And Al Capone built his empire by refusing to compromise. "Let me tell you something about peace," Capone says, leaning forward now, his massive frame casting shadows across the table. "Peace is what weak men beg for when they can't win a war. You think I need peace? I got 500 men. I got judges in my pocket. I got cops on my payroll. I got more guns than the National Guard. So tell me, Bumpy, why the hell would I want peace with Harlem?" Bumpy doesn't react. He reaches into his jacket, slow and deliberate, giving Nitti time to draw if he wants. But he pulls out only a piece of paper, folded once, and slides it across the table. Capone looks at it like it might explode. Then he picks it up, unfolds it, and reads numbers, dates, names, revenue streams. The entire architecture of Harlem's numbers racket, laid out in precise detail. The policy game, the lottery that runs through every black neighborhood in New York, the underground economy that generates thousands of dollars daily, all flowing through a network so tight that even the Italian mobs haven't been able to penetrate it. And at the center of it all, one name, Stephanie St. Clair, the Queen of Harlem. Capone studies the paper for a long moment, Then he looks up at Bumpy, and for the first time tonight he smiles. It's not a friendly smile. "You're offering me Harlem," he says. "No," Bumpy replies. "I'm offering you a piece of Harlem. Big difference. And why would St. Clair send you here to offer me anything? Last I heard, she was telling my boys to go to hell." "Because she's smart," Bumpy says. "Smart enough to know that you're gonna come for Harlem whether she wants you to or not. Dutch Schultz is already moving in from the Bronx. Lucky Luciano sniffing around. And you got your eyes on every dollar from here to New York. So the question ain't if the white mobs are coming. The question is, do you want a war or do you want a business?" Capone leans back again, his chair creaking under his weight. He's listening now, really listening, because Bumpy Johnson just said the magic word: business. Al Capone understands violence. He's fluent in intimidation, but what he truly loves, what drives him more than anything, is business. The art of turning chaos into cash. And right now, Bumpy is speaking his language. "Keep talking," Capone says. Bumpy leans forward, his voice low, steady, the voice of a man who's thought this through from every angle. "Harlem runs different than Chicago," he begins. "It ain't just territory, it's trust. Every number runner, every collector, every player in that game, they're connected to the community. They know who's playing, who's paying, who's good for their word. You send your boys in there with guns and threats. Sure, you might take over for a week, maybe a month. But the whole system collapses. People stop playing. They don't trust outsiders. You kill the golden goose trying to steal the eggs." Nitty snorts. "So what, we supposed to just let you people run your own game and take nothing?" Bumpy's eyes shift to Nitty, cold and sharp. "You take plenty, 20% off the top, every week. No wars, no federal heat. No dead bodies in the street bringing cops and reporters. Clean money, safe money, steady money. 20%, Capone repeats, tasting the words. "And what do I give you?" "Protection," Bumpy says. "You keep Dutch Schultz out. You keep the other families from moving in. You let Harlem run its own operations, and we make sure your money comes like clockwork. Nobody skims. Nobody runs, we deliver. It's a bold offer, audacious even." Bumpy Johnson is sitting in front of the most powerful gangster in America and proposing a partnership where Harlem maintains autonomy, where black operators control their own territory, where Al Capone doesn't own everything but shares the pie. It's unprecedented, it's insane, and Al Capone is considering it. The silence stretches out, thick and dangerous. Nitty looks like he wants to shoot Bumpy on principle, but Capone's mind is elsewhere, running calculations, weighing risks, seeing angles that others miss. Because Al Capone didn't build an empire by being stupid. He built it by recognizing opportunities that other men overlooked. "You know what I think?" Capone finally says, standing up, walking to the window, looking out over the dark Chicago streets below. "I think you're scared. I think St. Clair knows she can't hold Harlem forever, so she's trying to cut a deal before I take it all anyway." Bumpy doesn't rise to the bait. "Maybe," he says calmly. "Or maybe she's giving you a chance to make more money with less risk." "Your call." Capone turns from the window, his face half in shadow. "You ever been to war, Bumpy?" "Every day of my life." "Then you know war is expensive. Bullets cost money. Bribes cost money. Lawyers cost money. And bodies cost the most because bodies bring heat. Federal heat. The kind of heat that shut down Johnny Torrio. The kind of heat that's already got Elliot Ness and his boy scouts crawling up my ass every day, looking for something to pin on me." He walks back to the table, plants his hands on it, leans close to Bumpy. "I don't need Harlem," he says, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "But I could take it. I could roll through with 100 men and burn it to the ground. So tell me why I shouldn't." Bumpy meets his gaze, unflinching. "Because prohibition ain't gonna last forever." The room goes still. Even Nitty stops fidgeting. Because Bumpy Johnson just said what nobody else dares to say out loud. The truth that every gangster knows, but refuses to acknowledge. Prohibition, the golden goose that made them all rich, the 18th Amendment that turned alcohol into liquid gold, is dying. The country is changing. The economy is crashing. The political winds are shifting. And when prohibition falls, every empire built on bootlegging will crumble overnight, unless they have something else. You see it too, Bumpy continues, his voice steady, confident. The writing's on the wall. Maybe it's next year, maybe it's 5 years, but it's coming. And when liquor's legal again, what way you gonna sell? You gonna need new revenue streams. Gambling, numbers, policy. That's the future. And Harlem's got the best system in the country. We've been running it for years. We know every trick, every angle. You want in on that game, you need us. Not as slaves. As partners. Capone straightens up, his mind racing. Because Bumpy's right. He's completely, terrifyingly right. Capone has built his fortune on illegal alcohol, but he's not stupid enough to think it'll last forever. He's already diversifying, moving into labor unions, prostitution, gambling. But gambling in Chicago is small-time, disorganized. Harlem's numbers racket is an empire unto itself, refined, efficient, profitable. And if he could tap into that system, learn from it, expand it across every city in America, the potential is staggering. How do I know, Sint? Claire won't take my money and tell me to go to hell anyway, Capone asks. Because I'll be the middleman, Bumpy says. I collect from Harlem, I deliver to you. Anything goes wrong, you come to me. I got skin in the game. My life is on the line every week. That's your guarantee. Capone walks back to his chair, sits down heavily and lights a fresh cigar. He puffs it slowly, deliberately, making Bumpy wait now. Turnabout is fair play. The smoke curls between them, and through it, Capone studies this man from Harlem. This man who walked into his fortress unarmed and unafraid. This man who just offered him a deal that could reshape the entire underworld. 15%, Capone finally says. 20, Bumpy replies without hesitation. 18, 20, Capone's eyes narrow. You don't negotiate. On this, no. 20% is fair. You get protection money without lifting a finger. No overhead, no risk, pure profit. You want more, you gotta earn it. For a moment, it looks like Capone might explode. Nitty's hand drifts toward his gun again. But then, unexpectedly, Capone laughs. A genuine, deep, rumbling laugh that fills the room, because he respects this. He respects a man who knows his worth and won't back down. In a world of cowards and sycophants, Bumpy Johnson just stood his ground against Al Capone and didn't blink. All right, Capone says, still chuckling. 20%. But I got conditions. Name them. First, I want detailed reports, every week. Numbers, locations, operators. I want to know how the system works, inside and out. Bumpy nods. Done. Second, I want some of your best people. Send them to Chicago. Teach my guys how to run a numbers game the right way. I'm expanding into other cities and I need that knowledge. You'll get 3 operators, 3 months. They teach your people, then they come back. 6 months. 4. Capone considers, then nods. 4. And third, you're my man now. Not St. Clair's, not Harlem's. Mine. You collect, you deliver, you keep the peace. Any problems in Harlem, you fix them before they become my problems. You're the liaison between my world and yours. That clear? Bumpy's jaw tightens slightly, the first sign of real tension. Because this isn't just a business arrangement anymore. Capone is essentially claiming ownership of him, making him a lieutenant in the outfit's sprawling network. It's a dangerous position, caught between 2 worlds, trusted by neither, vulnerable to both. If Harlem sees him as a traitor, he's dead. If Capone sees him as disloyal, he's dead. He's walking a tightrope over a pit of knives, but he didn't come here to walk away. Clear, Bumpy says. Capone extends his hand across the table. It's massive, scarred, the hand that signed death warrants and counted millions. Bumpy takes it. His grip is firm, strong, equal. They shake, and in that moment a pact is sealed. Not written. Not recorded. Just 2 men, 2 worlds, 2 empires finding a way to coexist in the shadows. One more thing, Capone adds, not releasing Bumpy's hand yet. This deal stays quiet. Nobody knows about this except us and whoever absolutely has to know. Not the papers, not the cops, not even most of my guys. You understand why. Bumpy understands perfectly. Because if word gets out that Al Capone negotiated with a black gangster, that he gave Harlem autonomy, that he settled for a percentage instead of total control, every other territory will expect the same. His reputation for absolute dominance will crack, weakness will show, rivals will pounce. The image of invincibility that Capone has carefully cultivated will shatter. And on the flip side, if Harlem knows that Bumpy cut a deal with Capone, that he's paying tribute to the white mob, the community will turn on him. He'll be seen as a sellout, a traitor, a collaborator. His power will evaporate. His life will become worthless, so the deal must remain invisible, a ghost agreement, enforced in shadows, profiting in silence. Nobody knows, Bumpy confirms. They release hands. Nitty looks disgusted but says nothing. Capone returns to his chair, suddenly looking tired, the weight of his empire pressing down on those broad shoulders. "Get out of here," Capone says, not unkindly. "And Bumpy, don't make me regret this." Bumpy stands, buttons his coat, and walks to the door. He pauses there, hand on the knob, and looks back. "Mr. Capone," he says, "you're gonna make more money off Harlem than you ever would have by burning it down. That's not something you regret. That's something you remember." And then he's gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving only the smoke and the silence. Frank Nitti waits exactly 10 seconds after the door closes before he speaks. "Boss, you can't be serious. We just let a—" "Careful," Capone interrupts, his voice low and dangerous. "Choose your next words very carefully, Frank." Nitti swallows whatever he was about to say, but his frustration is written all over his face. "We could have taken Harlem. We could have owned it all." "And then what?" Capone stands again, pacing now, his mind still working through the implications of what just happened. "We occupy Harlem with how many men? 50, 100. And those men can't spend 2 minutes on a street corner without standing out. You think the community's gonna cooperate? You think they're gonna keep playing numbers when our guys are collecting? The whole operation dies, Frank. We'd be fighting for scraps. So we just give in. We just let them. We don't give in. We adapt." Capone stops pacing, turns to face his enforcer. "You know what's coming, Frank. Prohibition's done. Maybe not this year, maybe not next, but it's done. The reformers are winning. The public's tired of the violence. And when they repeal the 18th, what do we have? We need new income. Gambling is that income. And Bumpy Johnson just handed us the keys to the most profitable gambling operation in the country." Nitti still looks unconvinced. "You trust him?" "Hell no, but I trust his self-interest. He knows if he crosses me, he's dead. And he knows if he delivers what he promised, he's richer and more powerful than he's ever been. That's enough. What about the other families? Luciano, Schultz, they're not gonna like this." Capone smiles, cold and calculating. "They don't have to like it, they just have to stay out of Harlem. And if they don't, well, that's what our agreement with Bumpy is for. He keeps Harlem stable, we keep the vultures away. Everybody wins." But even as he says it, Capone knows it's more complicated than that. The underworld is a web of alliances and betrayals, territories and tributes, respect and retribution. What he just did, cutting a deal with Harlem, recognizing their autonomy, accepting a partnership instead of dominance, it violates every unwritten rule of their world. If handled wrong, it could make him look weak. But if handled right, it could be a blueprint for the future. A way to expand without war. A way to profit without the constant bloodshed that brings federal attention. Al Capone is betting on the future. And he's betting that Bumpy Johnson is smart enough to make it work. Meanwhile, Bumpy walks through the dark Chicago streets, alone, his breath misting in the November cold. His heart is still racing, adrenaline pumping through his veins, but his face remains calm. He can't show fear, can't show relief, can't show anything. Because even now, even blocks away from the Lexington Hotel, he knows he's being watched. Capone's men, keeping tabs, making sure he leaves town, making sure he doesn't try anything stupid. He hails a cab, gives the driver an address near the train station, and settles into the back seat. As the city slides past the window, Bumpy allows himself, finally, to think about what just happened. He walked into Al Capone's stronghold and walked out alive. More than alive. He walked out with a deal that changes everything. Harlem gets to keep running its own operations. The numbers racket stays in black hands. Stephanie St. Clair remains the queen, and all it costs is 20% and some knowledge transfer. It's a steep price, but it's survival. It's autonomy. It's respect. But Bumpy also knows the danger he's in now. He's made himself essential, which means he's made himself a target. If the deal falls apart, both sides will blame him. If money goes missing, Capone will come for him. If Harlem rebels, St. Clair will turn on him. He's balanced between two worlds, and the slightest misstep will crush him. Still, as the cab pulls up to the station and Bumpy pays the driver, he feels something he hasn't felt in years. Hope. Not naive hope, not foolish optimism, but the cold, hard hope of a man who just changed the rules of the game. The train to New York leaves at midnight. Bumpy boards it, finds a quiet seat in the back, and stares out into the darkness. Somewhere out there, across the miles of American heartland, Harlem waits. His city, his people, his responsibility now more than ever. And in Chicago, in the Lexington Hotel, Al Capone pours himself a drink and does something he rarely does. He wonders if he made the right choice. The deal, of course, remains secret. In the months and years that follow, not a single newspaper reports it. Not a single cop investigates it. Not a single rival mob figures it out. The money flows quietly from Harlem to Chicago, 20% like clockwork, delivered by Bumpy Johnson himself or his trusted couriers. Capone's men learn the numbers game from Harlem's experts and begin expanding it into Detroit, Cleveland, Philadelphia. The profits are enormous, clean, steady. Dutch Schultz tries to move into Harlem in 1930. He's met with coordinated resistance, not just from St. Clair's people, but from mysterious enforcers who seem to have Chicago connections. Schultz backs off, confused and frustrated. Lucky Luciano probes the territory in 1931 and finds the same invisible wall. Word spreads quietly through the underworld. Harlem is protected. Nobody knows by whom. Nobody knows why, but everybody knows to stay out. Bumpy Johnson becomes a legend, the man who walks between worlds, the diplomat of the streets. He's feared in Harlem, respected in Chicago, and untouchable to everyone else. His power grows not from violence, though he's capable of that, but from his position as the bridge between two empires. He becomes essential, irreplaceable. Al Capone, for his part, watches Prohibition die exactly as he predicted. The 21st Amendment passes in 1933, and overnight the liquor trade becomes legal. Bootleggers across the country scramble to find new income. Many fail. Many end up dead or in prison. But Capone's organization survives, thrives even because they diversified, because they built new revenue streams, because they learned from Harlem. The deal itself becomes something of a myth. Years later, after Capone's imprisoned for tax evasion, after Bumpy's done his time and returned to Harlem, after the players have changed but the game remains the same, people whisper about that November night in 1928. They tell stories of how the King of Chicago and the Prince of Harlem sat down together and redrew the map of American crime. How they created an arrangement that lasted decades, an unwritten rule that territories could be negotiated, that cooperation could be more profitable than conquest, that even in the brutal world of organized crime, intelligence could triumph over violence. But the truth is simpler and more profound than the myth. Two men, facing impossible circumstances, found a way to survive. They recognized that the world was changing, that the old ways wouldn't work anymore, that adaptation was the only path forward. They took a risk, they built something new. And in doing so, they proved that even in the darkest corners of American society, even among criminals and killers and outlaws, strategy and vision could still change everything. The deal between Al Capone and Bumpy Johnson wasn't just about money or territory or power. It was about the future. It was about recognizing that the game was evolving and having the courage to evolve with it. It was about understanding that sometimes the strongest move isn't conquest but compromise, not domination but partnership. And that lesson, that invisible agreement forged in smoke and shadow on a cold November night, became the hidden foundation of organized crime's territorial system for generations to come. Not written in any book, not taught in any school. Just passed down, whisper by whisper, deal by deal, a ghost protocol that shaped the underworld long after both men were gone. November 17th, 1928. The night Al Capone learned that even a king must sometimes negotiate. The night Bumpy Johnson proved that intelligence is the ultimate weapon. The night Harlem became untouchable, not through violence, not through war, but through a handshake in the dark, a deal that nobody saw coming, a partnership that changed everything. The deal that made Bumpy Johnson untouchable.